This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my guy, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. Might be hearing a pep in his step. A guy that's excited. A guy that got to see his football team win a close, hotly contested contest against Ohio State. Man, what a football weekend it was, starting with the Lions. I took it all in. It was a football weekend for me. It was the Lions, Spartans, and Wolverines. Some good, some bad. But oh my goodness, looking forward to this broadcast. So much good stuff going on that even when we're recording this, some good stuff going on with the Red Wings. Real fast, cuz, did you hear the news? Patrick Kane coming off of a hip surgery, a guy that clearly has rapport with Alex DeBrincat. He is now joining the Red Wings. Steve Yzerman pulled the trigger. Risk reward, what do you think?
I think it's a great move. Also, I kind of think this is kind of a seal of approval, right? Like, this is a big move by Steve Yzerman. I think this will have a long-term effect when they go into free agency next year. If Patrick Kane's willing to come here, and I don't know if you know about the contract that he signed, but it sounds like it's a one-year deal that's prorated at $2.5 million. So he'll make about $2 million this year. So it still leaves you with money in the bank to go out at the trade deadline and bring somebody else in if you want to. You can get an upper echelon forward, somebody in the neighborhood of $7 million if you didn't want to move any other money around. So I think this works out really well for this team. And like I said, going into next year's free agency, if you've got a guy, a Hall of Famer like Patrick Kane, coming to your team and is willing to play for $2 million, that is a seal of approval. That is getting one of those guys who tells the rest of the league, look, this team, everybody now is on notice. Look at these guys. I think the big thing will be is if Patrick Kane can come in and give good quality minutes. This is a very tough surgery that he's recovering from. He basically had hip resurfacing surgery. So guys who have had this done generally play about 20, 30 games, and that's about all they get. And they're not as impactful as they used to be. If he's able to go through his recovery and he's able to come in and he's able to get on that line with DeBrincat and they're able to rekindle some of that chemistry and he's able to produce, maybe not at the pace that he produced last year when he was in the playoffs. Last year when he was in the playoffs, I think it was 7 games that he played. He put up 6 points. So almost a point per game. I'm not necessarily expecting that, but if you can show up and get some of that creativity and help, I guess, kind of usher along some of the younger talent that this team has and show this team how to win, especially when they get into the playoffs. Because right now, we're about a quarter of the way through the season, and this team is firmly in the playoffs. And I think some of that experience ushers in onto a very young team and helps them with their growing and helps them with that learning curve. Look, I'm not expecting Patrick Kane to come in here and be the guy who used to light it up back in the day where he was putting in basically 1.5 points per game. Not expecting that. But if this guy can come in, give you a quality 15 to 17 minutes a night and chip in with a point every other game or every 3 games, and he's not a liability. He's out there helping develop this team. I'm all about it. And either way, like I said, this pays dividends long term. This wasn't just a move about this season. This is, like I said, putting the rest of the league on notice. You want to come here. You want to play here. I think with this team, with the way they're currently situated, their big issue is their goaltending. Their goaltending has been so up and down, and it's been so inconsistent, and you don't know who should be starting right now. I think offensively they've got some power there, and I think defensively they're strong enough. It's trying to put some of these final pieces together to really help solidify this team, and I think they're on the right path. I think Steve Yzerman has showed you what the blueprint is. Forever and a day, it was draft, load up on draft picks, this, that, the other thing. He's kind of gone into this past offseason, he's gone into this year where he's looking to now add pieces. He's looking to really bolster this lineup, going out, hitting free agency hard, talking to Patrick Kane on the side, getting him to come in, making trades, doing different things. He's got the depth in the organization that he wants now, and now it's time to kick it into overdrive, going out and wheeling and dealing and bringing in pieces. I love this signing. I think this is awesome. It'll be interesting to see how it pays dividends and if Patrick Kane's able to make it through the entire season. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a disastrous trip to Sweden. Obviously didn't go the way in which the Wings would have wanted, but they've turned it around now. And obviously a hockey season has its lulls. It has ups and downs. And I think that the Wings obviously are trying to do anything they can to make their team to reach their potential. And the potential is there to be a playoff team. And I think the ceiling is maybe a series win here or there, and to acclimate. And I think that for a guy like Patrick Kane, a veteran, I don't think Steve Yzerman makes this move if he doesn't think that it can pay dividends. And it's a low risk situation. And I think that the opportunity that he's going to have to play with DeBrincat, you make a guy that's on your team happy. And look, I think it's fair that, obviously Kane has a storied history with the Blackhawks, a lot of cups and things like that. Obviously has a little bit of a past too as well. But in the end, now the man that's going to come here, I think will fit in just well. It's a nice culture. It seems like the Wings are in a development phase and they're gaining attention. Unlike the Pistons, who, cause I think you're starting to hear and see the whispers and read the tea leaves here that people are not liking the disaster that is going on with the Pistons. When you lose to the Wizards, I thought that was going to be a referendum game. You heard before that they had a players meeting after the loss last week on Friday. They tried to get it together, and you're playing one of the worst teams in the NBA, and you can't muster up a victory. The defensive performances, you got two organizations, the Wings led by Steve Yzerman, and they're on an upward trajectory, doing things, adding players that potentially doing things on a team that you just come off a stretch where you got 3 games where you get points, and you got the Pistons who are doing jack shit. They got the youngest team in the NBA, but there's no development. When the beat writers start writing that the Pistons are a disaster, it's a disgrace, and I'm shocked. Tom Gores is so checked out that nothing, crickets. You don't hear nothing after a disastrous loss, and people are, when Monty Williams, after losing 14 games in a row, is like, you guys got to have pride wearing this jersey. Well, I thought that the media took a little bit of a back seat there. He got all mad. 1-minute press conference, he asked, is there any other questions after his little rants? And nothing else was asked. I thought that was an opportunity maybe to ask him, like, hey, what is it you're going to do to make them execute better? Why is it looking like this? Is this roster, can they this season have any meaningful progression when you don't have anybody to lead them to win? How are they supposed to win if you don't have any leaders that know how to win? I mean, those are simple, basic questions that anybody that covers sports would ask. But I think that they didn't want to get lit up. They knew that, oh my God, Monty's pissed and things like that. But it's probably the worst it's ever been. And the crazy part, cuz, is I think Troy Weaver's going to survive it. He's literally mastered it where he can collect a check maybe this year and next year under the guise of injury and youth. Are you serious? He had 4 years to try and get this thing moving, and you don't get 10 years to rebuild in any sport. You're going to try to rebuild in front of an empty arena? Like, what is going to happen? The rest of the year, what is the point of watching the Pistons? It's probably the worst it's ever been, and to have it where the pieces don't look like they fit, what do you think is going to make it so that they are going to fit? Yeah, you're going to have all this money, but do you trust Troy Weaver to spend it? I think the morale with the Pistons, at least among the fan base, is the lowest it's ever been.
Yeah, look, I think the Pistons, you're seeing a team that has been put together poorly, right? Conversely to what Steve Yzerman has done, what Troy Weaver has done, has not given a set of young talent. Like I think half this roster is made up of like 8 first-round picks from the last 4 drafts. Like these are young kids. You have no veteran leadership to really usher them along and kind of show them how to win or show them how to practice or what to do. There's nobody there to really kind of help the young talent grow. Like there's only so much your head coach can do. And I think at this point, your head coach is just like, I made the biggest mistake ever. I could have stayed home. I didn't have to do this. And now I'm here. I find the Pistons so hard to watch, and it's just not fun. This was a team that when they got Cade Cunningham a few years ago, there was so much promise, and there was this gigantic uptick, and everybody was excited. And you haven't seen the development of Cade. Cade's supposed to be the centerpiece of this team, and he has his struggles on the floor. I understand injuries happen. That's part of it. But it just hasn't been a fun watch. This hasn't been a fun ride. And I agree with you. I think Troy Weaver does survive this because you've got an owner who, let's be honest, he's a space cadet. He shows up, he wears his black T-shirt with a plunging V-neck, and he gets loaded on the sidelines, and it's basically a business stop for him. He's bringing in people that he is schmoozing for business, and like, hey, let's go to a game, let's go watch my team get thrashed, and let's keep it moving. I'll show you the arena that we rent because we had an arena, but we got rid of it because that was a good idea, good business move. But the owner, I think, is really the person to blame here. As much as you want to crush Troy Weaver, Troy Weaver has not done a good job putting this team together. I think this all falls at the feet of Tom Gores. I think Tom Gores is arguably one of the worst owners in sports right now, and he has really hamstrung this team, and he just hasn't done a very good job of being an owner. And look, if you're an owner, that means you're going to put pressure on your general manager to get things right. I think Troy Weaver just kind of has a free pass. He just kind of gets to punch in and punch out and keep things moving. You look at half of the way the front office of this team is put together. It's a lot of nepotism. There are family members of family members doing jobs that they are ill-equipped to do. So it's frustrating. And again, that all falls at the feet of the owner and ownership. So I think the Pistons are still in year one of that rebuild, which sucks, man. It's like they haven't been able to get past that. We're just kind of hitting the reset button. Messed up thing is Cade's rookie contract's going to be coming up here soon, and they'll be looking to re-sign him. And there's no guarantee that he wants to come back, because why would you want to come back to this? Why would you want to come back to this team, to this organization? They can't get out of their own way. So it's incredibly frustrating if you are a Pistons fan.
Because remember the podcast when Stafford signed that contract, and I was like, why, if you're a competitor, would you ever sign it? And we talked about all that money that he made, the $27 million, resetting the time. I remember talking to you about it and saying, if you're a real competitor, what does it say about you to take the money when you have no chance to compete? Listen, it's not popular to say, but if you're Cade Cunningham and you sign a contract with the Pistons, you're basically giving away real hope that you're going to be among the elite in the NBA. It's just really tough. Even if things go well, you got Giannis, who is a freak out there in Milwaukee. You got teams already now that have started to rebuild before you that are or after you that are successful. Cleveland's moving forward. You got Houston, who people are looking at. It's got a 500 record and added some veterans to at least kind of start to guide the ship. Man, if you're going to do the wait till next year, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of people left. So we'll see what this season will bring. But if it's another 10-win year and you're going to lose a lot, I don't think it's a masterful plan, because the ownership, Troy Weaver and Monty said that there should be some progress. And I don't think it's really asking for a lot to go from 17 to like 30 wins. I mean, that's still 30 and 52. This could be all-time worse, and I guess we'll have to start looking at who the top prospects are in the coming weeks to see if this is worth it. But there's no guarantee that if you stink it up, that you're going to eventually end up being the top team. So this is a rebuild that's starting to look like it went belly up, and it stings because it's looking like it's mirroring the Tigers rebuild with Al Avila, and that didn't go well. And you're starting to look at Troy Weaver Avila here, who's taking it down the same road. Let's see if Tom Gores, over the course of this year, if the fan base is loud enough, if the big-time, sports talkers and writers in town that have weight write and pen things. Let's see. Let's see what happens. Now, let's transition into some positivity. Oh, football time, baby. It was crazy to see how this weekend went for the Lions, the Spartans, and the Wolverines. A tale of two different situations. The Lions, not so positive, but still, ended up after the entirety of the week, still 2.5 games up in the division. You realize, okay, you might end up winning it by default, because if you really thought about it, if you're scared of Josh Dobbs, you'd have to have another Thanksgiving performance to probably lose to the Vikings at Ford Field. There's opportunities for more wins if you grind, but it was alarming Thanksgiving, everybody's happy, eating their turkey, ready to watch the Lions, ready to dominate the Packers, ready to show Jordan Love what it's like to get destroyed at Ford Field. And that did not happen. We got the bad Lions. We got the Lions that we've kind of been accustomed to on Thanksgiving, not playing well, playing really sloppy. It was crazy, man. You just got the first sense like, play one was a deep bomb to Christian Watson, and they bombed hard. They crashed and burned in front of the country. But, obviously not their best performance. Yeah, many people will say it. I've said it. It was 3 games in 11 days. The Packers had the same situation in regards to obviously playing on short rest. They look like the faster team, the better team. But in the end, it's a division rival. It's a competitor that's been listening to all the press and all the hype and people saying that they're not worthy. And you had a guy in Rashawn Gary who was ultra motivated. And in sports, just little things motivate these athletes. Guys, when the competition level is that really even among teams look for any psychological edge that they can find. And Rashawn Gary came to play because a year ago he suffered a major season-ending injury at Ford Field. Now he returns and comes back and balls out, and a lot of the warts that the Lions have, which is good. Look, in any situation, you got to realize that in an NFL season, it ebbs and flows. Yes, many people are looking at this year and saying, well, based on the rest of the NFC, this Lions team can really take a chance. Look, in the end, the expectation is to win the division and get to the playoffs and hopefully win a game. That's about it. No one's going to say that publicly within the organization, but that's where they're at when you have a young team. And they're learning along the way. Now, is this team perfect? No. Was this team going to invest and throw good money after bad and waste draft picks? No. Draft and develop. Next year is the year where you can say, okay, win the NFC and try to win the Super Bowl. This year is about, hey, if you win that playoff game, get the experience, see what it's like for this young core. But you got to also remember, injuries take a big toll on any team. And every team has injuries. But when you have an offensive line that's purring like a kitten with Jonah Jackson, and it's drastically different, the performances, when he's gone, Colby Sorsdahl is a rookie that was not expected to have this role. Now he gets an opportunity, he falls flat on his face, and he gets benched. Well, what happens is it throws everything off. It is if you're familiar with working on a line, if a guy like John, who's a newbie, gets on the line, and you have to run the parts through this way, and he stops the line. Well, what happens? It's not anybody else's fault. It's John's fault. He stopped the production. He can't fit the damn metal into the slot and push the damn button. He can't figure it out. And I am talking through experience, and it's funny stories to tell, but it happened. A player shut down the line, and it caused Jared Goff to have no timing. He got, had to escape and really showcase one of his biggest weaknesses is he has no ability to go off script, but the Lions can correct these things. So I'm not panicked. It was a crash and burn situation. I looked at it like if they can clean this shit up with more time and film review and hopefully, figuring out the offensive line combination that will help Goff, things can get back on track. I don't think it's time to panic, but at the same time, the warts need to be revealed throughout the course of the season. It can turn quick, and you're only 2.5 games out with having to play Minnesota twice. So how did you take that in? Were you like, oh, did the drinks flow and make it feel better? Or were you like, God, this is horrible? Because anytime the Lions had an opportunity, Goff fumbled the damn football.
I was so frustrated watching that game. Just so upset. It took me back to the Matt Stafford days, right? It took me back to the Charlie Batch days. It took me back to the Scott Mitchell days. It took me back to those days where I was just like, you just expected. Like they couldn't get anything going. They were always in their own way. And that was like the Lions of the old. Every time something would start, it was there would be some kind of catastrophic something or another that would totally derail whatever they had going on. They couldn't stop anything. The game, I wanted to scream. I wanted to punch the TV. I was so upset. And I think it all kind of came to a head when they did the fake punt from I think it was their 25-yard line. I was like, what are we doing here? Ooh. Like, we're just taking risks now for no good reason. I was so upset with this game. And this took me back to when I was younger. When I was a kid, the Lions would lose a game, and I would be upset until Thursday of the following week. And then by the time Friday rolled around, I had digested it enough to where Saturday came and I got myself amped up for Sunday just to kind of go through it all again. And this game put me back there. I was so mad. I ended up coming home from my mom's house on Thanksgiving. I watched the San Francisco game, and I was like, this last week, maybe 10 days, is going to be what is going to cement the Detroit Lions and their playoff fate. Like, you couldn't get any help from Kansas City when they played Philadelphia on Monday night. And then you turn around and the Lions end up blowing the game on Thanksgiving. Dallas wins. You had San Francisco win. And then you fast forward to Sunday night and Philadelphia, again, able to eke out another win. And it's like, we talk about this team going to the playoffs, we talk about this team doing good things in the playoffs. I firmly believe this team has to have home field advantage in order to make some type of a run in the playoffs. I don't feel like this team is good enough to go on the road anywhere and get a victory. I know that their road record with Dan Campbell during this stretch is very impressive. But you have to remember, you've got a guy like Jared Goff who plays much better indoors, plays much better at home than he does on the road. You have this guy who could possibly have to go someplace and play in inclement weather. And you've seen the last couple of weeks, was it last 3 weeks or so? The one thing I can say, and I want to know if you agree with this or not, these Lions will only go as far as Jared Goff will take them. As much as this team has done with their drafting and bringing a couple guys in for free agency, trying to improve this defense, adding multiple pieces on offense and building this offensive line where you can kind of rotate guys in, still, when you break it all down, this team is only as good as Jared Goff will allow it to be. So if Jared Goff's going to go out and throw interceptions, you're going to have an incredibly difficult day that day. If Jared Goff's going to go and fumble the ball, you're probably not winning that game. But if Jared Goff goes out there, throws 2 touchdowns, takes care of the ball, you're in a prime spot where you guys might win that game. And Jared Goff will do a much better job of taking care of the ball, not throwing interceptions, not dealing with bad passes in inclement weather if he's at home, if he's insulated in Ford Field. Do you agree with me that Jared Goff in the Detroit Lions can only go as far as he can take them?
Absolutely. And you saw, oh man, that was the Jared Goff that pissed off Sean McVay and when he was the quarterback of a team and was one of the guys that had the most number of turnovers. That's just going to derail everything. And Dan Campbell said it. Look, he's talked to Goff. He understands. They understand what's going on. They understand that he needs to just tuck the ball and get down. Throw the ball away. You can't try and be wishy-washy in your decision-making. And I think it's a fair question to ask. Maybe I'll ask it on Wednesday. Maybe I will have had an opportunity to ask it on Wednesday. But the question really is, can a quarterback that doesn't really know how to go off script, can he improve? I think the answer would be, look, you just got to find any avenue if a play doesn't go. And here's the thing that's tough. Jared Goff needs it perfect. That's where the new NFL is going, is a quarterback that has the advantage of, look, the other teams get paid too. The other teams have super fast defensive linemen, linebackers that can blow up a play. Yeah, it's great to say we need to have every play run well. It doesn't happen all the time. Look, man, plays break down. You have a rookie in. Stuff happens. The ability to go off script and still create, even if it's 4 yards, is tremendously valuable. And the hope is that maybe in the future that is what the Lions will look. But currently, in the state that it's in, the Lions' offense can get back to some stability. Jared Goff, stop turning the ball over. Look, you don't see the play you like, throw it in the ground. I mean, we've seen it before, that last year when he stopped turning the ball over, the Lions won. And that is key. You can't have, especially turnover for points, you can't be on, you can't turn the ball over like they did against the Bears and win. It can happen when you're playing a not great football team, but when you're in a contest with a team that has some momentum like the Packers did coming in, they had hunger and they just outplayed you. But remember, too, that a lot of this, too, is the fact that it is practice is so key. The week from, really in the end, I always look at it like a major, I look at it like a curve. The 3 days before is just about recuperating. They don't practice. They basically just get to the facility, watch film, get the game plan, mentally see it, and try to get out there on Thursday and play. Thursday football is the worst. I try not to watch it in any capacity because, one, the matchups that are on Thursday are always terrible on Amazon, and two, the play the football players are not healed. They just are not going at full speed. They just can't recover at that rate. So now I want to see against the Saints how Jared Goff responds, because the Saints defense is legit. It's a tough place to play. And I do think that Jared Goff will rebound, and obviously it's good to be 8-3 and having a dud. Remember, 11-6, guys, was the prediction by most people. That was my prediction. So that still indicates 3 more losses in the 6 games. 3-3 gets you to 11-6. And I think that probably you could be 11-6, 12-5 is the range that I see. But my concern is that it just seems like in the bad performances, it doesn't seem like that in the losses, like if the offense is struggling, the defense doesn't pick them up, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. This game, Goff was just horrible, but then the defense went out there and couldn't do anything, and still struggles with the pass rush, when your head coach comes out and says, "Oh my God, that was the best I saw Jordan Love ever play," well, that means that your team didn't do what the rest of the league did to stop a guy. So that's an indictment on your defense. You have Kirby Joseph and getting after it. I don't know if you saw the film, getting after it, just showing frustration on the sideline with C.J. Gardner-Johnson and the defense. It just was a performance that wasn't great. And you need to have everything in sync. And like you said, Dan Campbell, what are you doing? You could have even said that Dan Campbell in that one play started to get desperate, and his lack of trust in the defense forced him to do that. Look, man, if you go down, you can't be. Look, make the rule 40-yard line, and you can't call any fake punts within the 40-yard line of your own on your own side. Like, come on, dude. Like, throughout that game, there was no evidence that the team was going to execute that. There was no look. Mm-hmm. When you go back and watch the film, there was no chance that play was going to succeed. That should have been killed, and it should have been something that never happened. But yeah, Jared Goff is the leader of that football team, and when your best player is turning the ball over at that higher rate, 1 interception, okay, you can try to overcome it. But 3 interceptions against the Bears and 3 fumbles? Good God. But at the same time, Aaron Glenn's defense is not doing anything to pick anybody up. And unfortunately, Hutchinson's getting double and triple teamed, but nobody else is stepping up. Nobody. And when we sit here and clown around and everybody's hyper-focused on Bruce Irvin, look, he can be a leader and help, but he's not going to turn it around. You're not going to go out there. Everyone else is going to, they're not going to go, I think, outside the organization and make changes. Maybe Marcus Peters, but that would be a stretch. I think that the defense is something that really needs to be talked about. It's concerning.
Yeah, for sure. Like Bruce Irvin is not going to be TJ Watt. You know what I'm saying? He's not going to be this guy you're going to put on the end, and all of a sudden he's going to make your defensive line that much better. Like that's not happening. That's unrealistic to expect that. Can he come in and can he maybe coach some of the guys up? Can he go out there and maybe make an impactful play when he plays one of 15 snaps? I mean, maybe. But you don't know. The way this defense is currently constructed and the production that you're getting from this defense is piss poor. This has been something that we have raised flags about with Aaron Glenn for since the beginning of the season. Like, I don't necessarily trust him as my defensive coordinator. I don't necessarily trust his ability to game plan. Honestly, you have one piece up front in Aiden Hutchinson, who has to get home. He has to get home. You have to devise a way to figure out how to get him home. Look, Aleem McNeil, really nice player. I rave about him a lot. I like him, okay? He's another guy in your defensive line. But after those 2 guys, what do you have? You've got nothing. You've got nothing. And honestly, your most impactful player on that defense, probably Alex Anzalone. And Anzalone might be done for the year, might be done for a game, might not be done at all. Nobody knows yet. We're still waiting on the report to come out to see how injured Alex Anzalone is. But if you really break it down, that's a guy that none of you wanted this year. That's a guy that everybody threw a fit about when they re-signed him in free agency, and he's your most impactful defensive player. And now he's hurt. So now you've got to scheme up different things. You've got to come up with different stuff. So you got to see Aaron Glenn get a little bit more creative. So the hope is that happens, but I don't have a lot of confidence in that. I don't have a ton of confidence in Aaron Glenn as my defensive coordinator. I think every now and then he pushes the right buttons, but to me, it kind of feels like when you were a kid and you're playing a video game and you're trying to figure out how to do that special finishing move. Like if you're playing Mortal Kombat and you're trying to figure out how to do the fatality where you rip the guy's head off and their spine's dangling. And so you just start mashing all these buttons in a random combination. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. I feel like that's Aaron Glenn's approach to defense. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. The hope is that it does. And for this team to be successful, you can't go into the playoffs and you can't go down this stretch in December football when everything is extra tight, when this is winning season. This is winning season. Detroit Lions fans, talking to you. December is winning season. You need to go out there and you need to win in December because it helps set you up for January and February. This is winning time. I don't trust Aaron Glenn during winning time because, again, I feel like he hopes and he prays that his game plan will get home, and I usually don't see that happening. And that, to me, is one of the bigger frustrations with this team. I hope he figures it out. I hope somebody can make a play. This is something that I've been thinking of watching the utilization of some of the linebackers. And things are going to change because depending on how injured Alex Anzalone is. How do you feel about possibly moving a guy like Malcolm Rodriguez to an opposite defensive end and just be like, look, your only job is to go get the quarterback. Just line him up out wide and say, go get the quarterback. That's it. That's all you got to do. You got nothing else to worry about. The guy is quick. The guy has speed. He can tackle. He loves contact. I feel like he would get home. I feel like you could take a guy like Rodriguez and you can put him as your fullback like they've done. You can have him as your linebacker like they have. But I feel like his best usage might be that rush end who gets out there during third down and just kind of funnels a play towards Aiden Hutchinson, or Aiden Hutchinson maybe funnels a play towards him. Am I crazy thinking that you can repurpose a guy who's not getting a ton of snaps as a linebacker on this defense and help make this defense a little bit more impactful by playing this guy in certain downs and scheming up some type of a fit where you can rush him off the edge?
Yeah, they're going to have to, because if Anzalone misses the game, I think he will. I think at least for the Saints game, he probably won't be available. I'm going to operate like that for now. I think you got to find ways to get Jack Campbell and Rodriguez playing a lot better. Campbell's struggling. He's obviously, getting confused and getting tricked by a lot of the eye candy and the nuance of elite offenses, and it happens. It's tough, man. That linebacker position is not easy to grasp, but he's getting the experience. Rodriguez, I think, will come in and get an opportunity now to showcase what he's worth, given that Anzalone's gone. And I think that you're absolutely right. Whether it be Campbell on the edge, Derek Barnes, who definitely did that and was successful at Purdue, you got to get creative. And it just, unfortunately, because schematically, the only way to draw more pressure when you're not getting it is to blitz more. And I think Glenn's afraid to, because if you don't get home, you don't got the guy. It's unfortunately just a talent thing. I think it's more talent than scheme. Yes, I do think that the press coverage, the ability to play in man, and the timing of that has not been on point. I don't think they have the guys that can play man coverage the way in which Aaron Glenn would like. And when you don't have the pass rush, you can't guard forever. So it ends up looking like the coverage is too lax. But in the end, you're trying not to get beat. It's that delicate balance of bend, don't break, but not giving up the big, deep play. And if you blitz more, there's a risk, because these quarterbacks, they understand pretty much if you're worth a darn, and Derek Carr is. If you're worth a darn, you know every blitz where it's coming from, and you can sense it with motion, and you can predetermine what's coming. And if you don't get there and the quarterback sees the guy that's open, you're done. You just gave up another 20 yards. So that's why he doesn't do it. And I get the clamoring, but in the end, it just was a mistake for Brad Holmes not to get an elite for this year. You could have did it. Chase Young, I think, no matter what issue, would have opened things up and would have been that opposite Robin for Aiden Hutchinson. But right now, you're living with the hope that the schedule favors you and you grind and compete. What's your confidence level about the Saints? I think this game could be really tough because the Saints play a rugged style of defense. They have explosive players, but the luck factor could be hitting the Lions at the right time. Chris Olave dinged up, two linemen starters dinged up, and Derek Carr is a player that if you can get that added level of confidence and play well, you can get a turnover or two. You can really force the issue there. So I think the Lions, it's going to be scrappy, but I think the Lions can beat the Saints because I think the luck factor is going to hit them this week.
I think the Lions are a better team than the Saints, and I think they can go on the road. they can win this game. I think they'll be playing with a little bit of an edge. I think this team really loves its head coach, and I think this team wants to get this win for Dan Campbell. This is his old stomping grounds. I think this team also really respects Alex Anzalone. Whether he's going to play or not, I understand that his wife is possibly having their second child here very soon. So maybe that's part of an issue why he doesn't play, as well as maybe being injured. I think they want to get a dub for him as well. I think this team can go on the road, and I think they can win in New Orleans. I know a ton of people who are going to this game. I think it's going to be another one of those games where Detroit fans show up, Detroit fans are loud, Detroit fans have a good time. I think when you really break it down position by position, I think everywhere but maybe wide receiver, the Detroit Lions are better than the New Orleans Saints. I think the Detroit Lions should win this game. I think they will win this game. I think they end up coming back home with a dub. So, I'm buying into the Detroit Lions getting a victory this week, but I still think there are things and there are issues that need to be rectified and addressed as we get into December and as we make our way towards January.
Here we go, baby. I got the Lions winning. 9-3, baby, would be amazing. But 8-4 would not be terrible, but you got to win this game. I think it would restore confidence, kind of take away that doom and gloom attitude. I think the key player, you got to go to Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, run the football. And I think defensively, you got to find somebody, John Kaminsky, Aleem McNeil. Someone's got to step up and really kind of get through the middle. We'll see if Bohanna gets another opportunity. We'll see if Bruce Irvin is the guy spot start. We'll see how this progresses, but the key thing is what offsets, what gives you more fear. If Anzalone's gone, you probably have a chance to pick on the middle of the football field and try and get Jack Campbell a little bit confused. So we'll see how that matches up, but the Saints are banged up, so and you got a chance to see from the Falcons what they were able to do. Go watch that Falcons-Saints game. They were able to expose a little bit of some things that they could do, and if you make the Saints one-dimensional, you make Derek Carr try to beat you, you have an opportunity to win. Speaking of winners, cuz first and foremost, let me say this: it was the lowest of lows watching Michigan State at Ford Field. I was there. I took it all in, kind of like a glutton for punishment. You knew it was the end of an era. I just kind of wanted to see, just from a personal, between everybody here listening, I just wanted to see how the media would ask Harlan Barnett questions knowing that he was going to be fired. I mean, literally everybody was talking about Jonathan Smith. The news was coming out. It was being talked about. I wanted to see kind of how they approached it, and boy, did I get a good lesson. They asked him, what would you tell the new coach and what would you say to this, and talking about culture. It was so good to learn kind of what that was like, and still Harlan trying to say, it's going to be me, and everybody knew. But I thought that the questions were very much on point and at the same time reflective of a shitty performance. I mean, oh my God, caused 60 yards of offense from the Spartans. It literally was like watching East Detroit high school football back in the day. I was like, what am I watching? What am I doing here? But I still enjoyed myself. You still get to see the Sea of Green. You knew it was a Macomb County reunion because half of Macomb County loves the Spartans. And look, in the end, it was just a fun night to get out and to see Penn State put a hurting on somebody. And it was the lowest of lows, but I took in the entire experience from the pregame to the media session afterwards, talking to a couple players. Man, the players that spoke, a linebacker, and like I said, I'm not really close to the roster, so I forgot their names. But the poise in which they demonstrated what they spoke, they were well taught, and it was really nice to see. But Harlan Barnett was shell-shocked. It was sad. But in the end, you knew he was going to be dismissed. And now we get a new era, and we'll talk next week more in depth about Jonathan Smith, what I think, the press conference that took place earlier this week, and all that. We'll do a recap of that next week. But then Saturday happened, and oh my God, was that completely different. That was elite. You felt like you were, and the reason why people say, well, why you're an NFL guy or you're a podcaster, why would you go? I like being in scenes. I like being in the environment when big stuff is happening. I like to see competition at the highest level, chess matches going on between people, between Ohio State and Ryan Day. I like to see, what goes on. It was a little crazy, a little inside story here. Jim Brandstatter talks nonstop in the media room. Every play. Why aren't you guys lining? He literally is like your dad or your grandpa watching a game in the media room. Why aren't you guys lining up? You can't miss that tackle. I thought literally I was going to have to review my CPR training because if they would have lost, he would have died right there on the spot. Brandstatter is sitting right behind me, commentating on every play. He's not on the air. You can't do that. This is unacceptable. No, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And the guy to my right was decked out in Michigan gear. I'm like, okay, I get the sense of where people are saying, okay, it's a working press room, but it's a Michigan. I was like literally
that is like breaking all of the rules.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he was a scout. I don't know if he was I don't know. I didn't look at what he was doing. I didn't ask who he was, but yeah, he was all into it. So it makes it fun when because I've seen that before, but I've never sat that close to Brandstatter where I could literally hear him talking about every play. It amped up the experience a little bit because I was sitting next to a Michigan fan who had his butthole so tight that you couldn't squeeze a quarter out of it. But it was great. It was fun. It was an epic experience, and you saw a program in Michigan really take it to the next step by stepping up their game, making the plays when they needed to. And it showed that, okay, they take this game seriously. They put together a great game plan. Sharon Moore did an absolutely great job. And I just thought that was a football game that was going to come down to the last second. And it was special. They made the play. And when they say defense wins championships, that's kind of how the Lions want to play. Tight, gritty contest. When you need to make the play, a player steps up, gets the pick, you win the game. And, unfortunately, Ohio State's quarterback was the difference. He did not have that much experience playing in that level of contest. And when the moment needed to step up, they came short. Even if you want to talk about Ryan Day's coaching, look, he had his players ready. They knew where to go to. They knew where they're – bro, you saw a play, you saw a drive in which Ohio State said, look, we don't need to pass the ball. We're just going to run the ball with Travion Henderson right up the field, and they hung in there. They were one possession away. And in those critical moments – that's where when you don't have the quarterback with experience, that's the edge in the game. And it was done. It was, you could hear a pin drop. Michigan fans were nervous, and that's what made the excitement so much greater is when that pick happened, everybody erupted and the crowd was exhaled and everybody was really excited. So it was great to be there. I didn't stay for the media sessions because I knew the traffic was going to be horrific. So I scooted out of there. Luckily where I parked was new. Got to get out pretty quickly and get to I took a different way home for the first time, taking US 23 as opposed to 94. I got out of there quickly. So I took it all in. I enjoyed it. Obviously was I'll be honest, I was rooting really hard for Ohio State. I wanted to see the devastation. But in the end, to see all the Michigan fans happy and everything like that, it was fun to be at. It was a critical, great football game. What was it like for you taking it all in? I know you're probably similar to Brandstatter, taking it all in, really nervous. Were you nervous that the Ohio State was going to take that last drive? Because it also would have produced so much great discussion. Sharon Moore choosing, I believe, the field goal to make it 6 points, forcing the Ohio State Buckeyes to go down the field and get the touchdown. Many would have wondered, hey, 4th and 4 to go, believe. Maybe go for it and ice the game and don't put the ball back. Had Ohio State won the game, I think that would have been a talking point for the ages there. How did you take it all in, and what was your experience like when you saw the interception from a guy that was passed over by Ohio State, ends up making the play for Michigan?
I was super excited. I sparsely remember most of the night. I was pretty hammered after. Really don't know how I got home, but that's a side story that we can talk about later on. Look, the fourth down that you're talking about, where it was debated whether or not Sharon Moore should go for the field goal or try to ice the game right there. We had this conversation at the table, because I was the one who said, I feel like they should try to ice the game here. I was like, I don't know why you're going to try to kick the field goal. Pick up the fourth down. Let's go. You've been successful on fourth down all day long. You've had a ton of play calls that have worked out. So let's just do it, and let's just get out of here and win this game. Instead, they kicked the field goal, and you put it in your defense's hands. And your defense came up with a monster play. I erupted when the pick happened. I was pumped. It was a lot of fun. I watched it in a very pro U of M bar, and I had a great time with a couple of buddies of mine and a ton of, I don't know, probably 100 of my closest Michigan friends watching that game. So I wasn't really nervous. And I don't know why, because normally I am very on edge during all of these games. I think by the time halftime rolled around, I was like, all right, I feel okay. I got nervous when Zach Zenner went down because I was like, that's your best offensive lineman. But Michigan responded right after that, and I was like, okay, cool. Now, Ohio State responded right after that, but to me, it just kind of felt like they were trading blows at that moment in time. So I wasn't super nervous, which was really, really weird for me. I had a lot of fun watching it, though. And look, I think when the college football playoff gets together and they're going to give out their rankings, when this comes out, they will have already done it. When we're recording this, they have not done it yet. I think that Michigan deserves to be ranked number 1. I think they deserve to be ranked over Georgia for this week. I think Michigan deserves that. They've played the toughest part of their schedule, doing all of it without their head coach. Now, yes, we can argue whether or not it was their own fault or not, but they did it without their head coach. They did it with a backup head coach, the assistant coach, the offensive coordinator, who ended up going on and basically obliterating the rival. Like, Ryan Day is broken at this point. He's not the same coach when it comes to this game that he is in every other game. Every other game, he's got like a bloodlust, and he can figure out a way to win the games and annihilate the teams that he's playing. When it comes to this team, it's like he's trying to shove square pegs in round holes, and he's getting frustrated. And it's funny to watch. Like, I do not feel threatened by Ryan Day at all. This goes back to what was his nuts? Cooper, the old head coach, where I think Lloyd Carr ended up beating him like 10 times. It felt like he couldn't get a win against Michigan. I never felt threatened by Ohio State when he was the head coach. I don't feel threatened by Ryan Day when he's the head coach. I felt threatened by Jim Tressel. Felt threatened by Urban Meyer. Do not feel threatened by Ryan Day. So I was not nervous. And after this win, the number 3 team beat the number 2 team according to the college football playoff. I think because of that, and in my estimation, they beat them pretty decisively. I know that the game was only won by 6 points, but I feel like Michigan controlled that game. Like I said, at no point did I feel nervous, did I feel shaken, did I feel really uncomfortable. I think I felt more uncomfortable leading up to the game than when the game actually kicked off. Once we got through the first, 5, maybe 7 minutes of that first quarter, I was like, all right, cool. I'm good. I'm here. We're good. Everything's going to be good. This team's got this. We're going to go on and we're going to win this game. It's just a matter of time. And they did. And I think because of that, Michigan deserves to be ranked number 1 when the college football rankings come out. Heading into championship weekend, I believe the University of Michigan should be ranked number 1 over Georgia, over Florida State, over Washington, over Oregon, over whomever you want to put. Michigan deserves to be ranked number 1.
Okay, quick hitters here regarding Michigan. Just your quick thoughts when I ask you the question. If Harbaugh leaves, do you give it to Sherrone Moore or somebody else?
I think you give it to Sherrone Moore.
You think he's the guy?
Sherrone Moore.
He impressed you? Okay. Do you think in some kind of way the scandal helped Michigan? That in some weird way it galvanized everybody and just really maybe took a team that might have lost a road game and really galvanized them? You think it ended up actually being a good thing?
I think it put a chip on their shoulder, and that chip helped drive them. I think it also helped bring that locker room closer together. It did help galvanize this team. Yes, I do believe that it did help. Scale
of 1 to 10, 10 being highly concerned, 1 no concern at all. How concerned are you about Jonathan Smith taking over for Mel Tucker and running Michigan State?
You said 10 is no concern?
10 is ultimate nervousness, 1 is chill.
Okay. I would say 6. I think he's going to do a good job with the team.
Okay.
I think he will recruit pretty well. I think he'll come up with some fun schemes, and I think he'll be pretty good. I think he will succeed in his role, but he doesn't terrify me. He doesn't scare me.
Okay. Do you think Michigan will appear in the college football final and have a real legitimate chance to win it?
I do. I think it took me a second to kind of run through stuff in my head, but I do. I think for me, this was what our next topic was. For me, it's all or nothing this year.
Yep.
It feels like Michigan has to win everything this year. Otherwise, I do not believe that they will ever win a national championship. I feel like the way this season has set up,
yep, exactly.
They have overcame every obstacle that they've either put in front of themselves or somebody else has put in front of them. They've done everything the way that it needed to be done for them to get to this point. And if they do not win a national championship this year, I do not believe that they will ever win a national championship.
Yeah, I think they can get to the playoff more with 12 teams, but look at the Big Ten, bro. You're going to have Oregon, Washington. You get more leeway. You probably can get into the playoff as a top 12 team with 1 or 2 losses. It just gets so much harder. I do think that they'll be a perennial playoff team. I think top 12 is reasonable to expect at Michigan. But to win it all, this is a golden opportunity. But I just think that when you look at it, Georgia just has a little bit too much. You could catch them in a game where they maybe overlook you, but I just think the speed in the SEC is crazy. Their offensive line is better than yours. And unfortunately, we'll never know, but you lost Zach Zinner, and that's not an easy thing to replace. That scene was gruesome. I think that hurts your chances. I do think that you got a good enough team to beat Iowa to win the Big Ten. You probably can win a playoff game if it's Washington or Oregon or whoever it ends up being. But in the end, I just think that to win it all, it takes an extraordinary amount of luck, and J.J. would have to step up. I think you have enough. Like I told you, Loveland is underrated, and I think he's really a special player. You got 2 good running backs. I think you have enough to compete against Georgia, but to win it all, it's crazy to think that this team could get better. But when you have a major injury like Zinner, let's see if the replacement can handle it. But good things are ahead. Big things are ahead for Michigan. A lot of pressure on them, but they've handled it, and Jim Harbaugh has navigated these waters. I think this week everybody just wants to see him take the trophy from the Big Ten president there, and they just want to see the ultimate laugh-in-your-face moment, and we'll see what happens. But this Michigan team has the potential to be special, giving a lot of people a lot of memories, and you beat Ohio State. You've sent them into a tizzy, and you'll see what this means moving forward. And Michigan has a chance for a real special season, undefeated so far, as we sit here and talk about a Wolverine team that just beat Ohio State, giving everybody great memories and storming the field and all the great reactions that people had. A great day in Ann Arbor, and it was a fun time, and everything was really stellar. Cuz, good stuff, good opportunity to catch up in the world of sports. Interesting times now as we move forward. Tigers making some minor moves. You got the Lions and everyone's pursuit of them, and the Pistons are, the train wreck that everybody wants to see. But I enjoyed the opportunity to catch up with you and talk about everything in the world of Detroit sports. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Make sure you hit us up. If anything we've said you completely disagree with, hit us up. Let us know. We definitely like to entertain a variety of different and opposing opinions as well. Anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast, one of the greatest ways to express yourself is a podcast. I love being part of the podcasting community. Just type in Detroit Sports Podcast, and our content will find you. And all you got to do is hit that subscribe button, and boom, every Thursday, a new, fresh episode of Doc and Jock will arrive. Cuz I can't wait to break down everything that happened with the Lions next week, getting a look at the new Michigan State coach, what happens now with Michigan as let's see if they cover the 23 points against Iowa. A lot of good stuff to talk about next on next week's episode of Doc and Jock.